So first, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. It really does mean a lot to see this many familiar faces. And before I start, I do want to say that some things in this story can be a bit triggering, and if you need to step out or take a moment, please feel free to. Growing up, I was taught that men don't cry. Men don't get emotional. Men don't show weakness or vulnerability. We don't talk about seeing therapists. We don't talk about needing help, and we don't talk about our failures, that doing so was a sign of weakness. I can count the number of times I've seen my father cry on one hand. I couldn't tell you a time I've seen my grandfather cry. Whenever I would get emotional in public, the men in my family would say, "Man up, stop acting like a child." This mindset is toxic. This mindset causes deaths. 79% of suicides in the US are men. Now, while that statistic might just be a number to some people, it's so much more than that to me. To me, I almost became a part of that number. The person you see before you today is not the person I was. I have changed a lot in my life because of the struggles and adversity that I have faced. When I was 7, I hugged my mother for the last time before she died. I don't know what to tell you. I was a broken, afraid, and scared little boy. Quite frankly, I was a mess. The thing is, through all of it, I felt like I had to be a man, right? And Steinbach men don't cry. Shortly after, my father remarried to a woman that he thought would be a mother, a parent to me. She was not. For the next decade, she emotionally and verbally abused me. She told me that no one would miss me if I was gone, that I would never amount to anything, that my mother would never be proud of me. Those words are what made me want to become a part of that number. She made me feel like my life was not worth living. But you don't tell anyone that. Steinbach men aren't suicidal. That's weakness. Steinbach men don't do that. Through the years that followed, on a daily basis, at the age of 14, I started drinking, abusing various substances, doing anything to numb the pain that started to consume me on a daily basis. Several times throughout those years, I wanted to die, and on a few occasions I tried. Eventually, my father saw me and saw the pain that I was in and said that you have to go. I can't help you. And that's when I went to a military school. At first I struggled. I woke up every morning and I hated it. I hated being away from my home as much as I hated being there too. But eventually, the boy that entered that school broken, lost, and afraid looked in the mirror and decided that he was going to change. I made a promise as I looked in that mirror. I said, tomorrow will always be better than today. In the years that followed, I went from 174th in my class to 4th. I founded community service committees and organizations. I became a representative to the board of trustees. I did everything I could to turn my life around. Not because of anyone else, but because I needed to do this for me. And when I went home, everyone asked me how it had happened. How I went from the kid who people were afraid to be around, who was the neighborhood screw-up, the kid who skated at 2 a.m. just to let off steam, to someone who was relentless and insatiable in their life. And at first I said I just tried hard. But the truth was I cried. I cried a lot. Because sometimes that's what you need to do. And despite what I'd been told my entire life, crying is not something to be ashamed of, but something to be embraced. I was emotional, I was vulnerable, and I was my authentic self. I allowed myself to feel and to process what I had been through. I allowed myself to be human. I ignored the lessons of Steinbach men and I cried. And the tears cascading down my cheeks changed my life. 2 months ago, I stood by my mother's grave with my father and sister, and as I stood there, I held them close, and not a single tear fell down my face. My father asked me if I was okay. He said, "Why aren't you crying?" And I thought for a second, because it was weird. I've almost never not cried in front of my mother's grave. And I realized that I had found peace. That I'd come to terms with my past, with who I am, and with what I had been through. And I finally realized that I am a man. I may not be the man that Steinbach men have always been, but I am a man in my own right. I explained to my father that the peace that I had finally found was peace, but it was very complex. Peace does not mean that I have everything figured out, because rest assured, I do not. I'm a 19-year-old college student. I do not have anything close to figured out. But what peace means is that I've come to terms with everything that has happened, and that while I recognize that life will always have challenges and obstacles, I also recognize that means accepting that I have to be okay with not being okay. It is okay to struggle. I'm still struggling with things. Right now, I'm struggling with Excel. You ever tried Excel? It's tough. It's really difficult. Sometimes I struggle with small things, like figuring out what to wear or figuring out what to eat at the dining hall. But no matter what happens, even when things aren't okay, I know that I still have so much to learn and I have so much to appreciate. But I'm also looking forward to things. I'm looking forward to promote men's mental health on this campus. I'm looking forward to finishing my memoir, which I've been writing for 3 years now. I'm 152 pages in. I'm looking forward to becoming a more active member of my community. I want to be an RA at our new Men's Mental Health LLC my junior year. I don't have life figured out, but the truth is, no one does. No matter how young or old you are, you have no idea what you're doing. And that's okay. It's okay to be human. I hope that we can all take the time to reflect on the things that suck and the things that make us strong. I have greatly appreciated this opportunity, and my heart is beating so absurdly fast right now. If you know me, you know I absolutely love to talk. In fact, I rarely ever am quiet. But this has been such a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm so honored. Thank you for coming, and I really appreciate it.